ஒரே வரி திட்டம் தொழில்துறையை முன்னேற்ற உதவும் என்று நிதியமைச்சர் ஜெயக்குமார் பெருமிதம் தெரிவித்துள்ளார். சென்னையில் நடைபெற்ற GST மாநாட்டில் அவர் இவ்வாறு பேசினார்.
Each and every state had their own views on issues. Honorable Union Finance Minister has found solution acceptable to all. It is a matter of pride that the decision in all the 19 meetings of the GST Council under the chairmanship of the Honorable Union Finance Minister have so far been only through consensus. The sagacity and wisdom of the Honorable Union Finance Minister has resulted in the successful rollout of the GST.
GST மாநாட்டில் அமைச்சர் ஜெயக்குமாரை தொடர்ந்து தற்போது மத்திய அமைச்சர் நிர்மலா சீதாராமன் பேசி வருகிறார். அந்த காட்சிகளை பார்க்கலாம்.
முடிவு எடுத்தது ஒரு அருண் ஜேட்லி அவர்களுடைய பொறுமையால் தான் முடிஞ்சது. அந்த பொறுமையும் ஒரு விஷயத்தை சூக்ஷ்மமா உடனே புரிஞ்சுக்கக்கூடிய திறமையும் மந்திரியும் சொன்னார். அதுக்கு முன்னாடி பேசினவங்களும் சொன்னாங்க, ஐயா நீங்க சட்டத்தில் மாத்திரம் பேர் நிபுணர் இல்லை, நீங்க எக்கனாமிக்ஸ்லயும் பெரிய நிபுணர் தான் அப்படின்னு சொன்னாங்க. இது ரெண்டும் இருந்தாலும் ஒரு விஷயத்தை புரிஞ்சுக்கக்கூடிய திறமைங்கிறது அதுக்கு அப்பாற்பட்டது. நீங்க நிபுணர் எத்தனை விஷயத்துல இருந்தாலும் நிமிஷத்துல ஒரு விஷயத்தை புரிஞ்சுக்கக்கூடிய திறமைங்கிறது சில பேர்கிட்ட தான் இருக்கும். அந்த திறமை நம்ம நிதி அமைச்சரிடம் இருக்கிறது. அதனால சொல்லக்கூடிய பெரிய பெரிய குழப்பத்துக்குள்ளாகக்கூடிய விஷயங்களை கூட திறமையோட சிறிய காலத்தில் புரிஞ்சுக்கிட்டு அதுக்கு வேணுங்கக்கூடிய முடிவை எல்லாருக்கும் முன்னாடி வச்சு அவங்க மூலமா ஒத்துக்க வச்சது தான் அவருடைய திறமை. இன்னொன்று, ஒரு மீட்டிங் கூட அரை நாள் ஒரு நாள் 1 மணி நேரம் மீட்டிங் இல்லை, நாள் முழுக்க நடக்கும். அதுக்கப்புறம் கூட அவருடைய அமைச்சரவை பணியை செய்யறது, வெளிநாட்டுக்கு போனோம்னா வெளிநாட்டுக்கும் போய் அதுக்கு தகுந்த மாதிரி திரும்பி உடனடியாக முடிவெடுத்த அந்த திறமையும் அந்த உழைப்பில் ஆர்வமும் ரொம்ப முக்கியமான விஷயம். அதனால இன்னைக்கு நிதியமைச்சராகவும் டிஃபென்ஸ் மினிஸ்டராகவும் கார்ப்பரேட் அஃபேர்ஸ் மினிஸ்டராகவும் இருந்தாலும் அது எல்லாத்துக்கும் தகுந்த திறமையும் நேரமும் கொடுக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு அமைச்சர் நம்மளுக்கு கிடைச்சிருக்காரு. அதனால நீங்க இன்னைக்கு தமிழ்நாட்டில் முதல் முறையை அவரை கூப்பிட்டு வாழ்த்தி GST நீங்க பண்ணீங்க, நல்லா பண்ணி கொடுத்துருக்கீங்க, நம்ம அமைச்சரும் அதுல பங்கேற்றிருக்காருன்ற விஷயத்தை நம்ம முதல்ல தமிழ்நாட்டில், அதுவும் தொழிலில் முதல்ல இருக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு மாநிலமான தமிழ்நாட்டில் நம்ம பண்ணியிருக்கோம்னா அது எனக்கு ரொம்ப சந்தோஷமா இருக்கு. அதே மாதிரி இந்த டாக்ஸ் டெஸ்டினேஷன் டாக்ஸ் நம்ம சொல்றோம், இருந்தாலும் தொழிலில் முதல்ல இருக்கக்கூடிய தமிழகம் அதுல முன்வந்து எல்லாரும் ஒரே மேடையில் பேசியிருக்கீங்க. அது ரொம்ப வாழ்த்துக்குரிய விஷயம். அதே சமயம் இன்னைக்கு காலையிலேருந்து கேட்ட விஷயங்கள் எல்லாத்தையும் கூட அவர் GST கவுன்சிலுக்கு தேவைப்பட்ட எடுத்துட்டு போவாரு, இல்லை அந்த டெக்னிக்கல் கமிட்டிஸ் அந்த லெவல்லே அது தீர்த்து வைக்கப்படுமா அப்படிங்கிறதுக்கும் நாங்கள் டெஃபினட்டாக அவர் முயற்சி எடுப்பார்ன்ற நம்பிக்கை எனக்கு இருக்கு. அதில் நானும் ஒத்துழைப்பு கொடுப்பேன். நீங்கள் அனைவரும் இன்னைக்கு ஞாயிற்றுக்கிழமையாக இருந்தாலும் நீங்கள் வந்திருக்கீங்க, எல்லாரும் டைம் கொடுத்திருக்கீங்க, அதுக்கோசம் என் நன்றி. ஜெய்ஹிந்த்.
தற்போது GST மாநாட்டில் மத்திய அமைச்சர் நிர்மலா சீதாராமனை தொடர்ந்து தற்போது நிதி அமைச்சர் அருண் ஜேட்லி பேசி வருகிறார். அதனை பார்க்கலாம்.
He has been representing the state of Tamil Nadu very diligently on the GST Council, strongly protecting the interest of his state. And at the end of the day, he has been a very important part of the consensus that we have built there. I can today say with a reasonable sense of expectation for the future that it was not a very easy reform to implement. And occasionally there are people who try and prevent any reform from happening. And one of the responsibility of the decision makers has been that if you are convinced that the reform is in larger national interest, then what I have learnt in the last few years is that don't blink. Because if you pause, you blink, you go into a reconsideration mold, then those who want to trip you will never allow those reforms to take place. If we look at the GST as a reform, maybe our next generation will be horrified with the idea of what originally our indirect tax system was. The country owes its geographical identity to the man who united us all, Sardar Patel. Not a very easy task. You had different languages, different regions, almost 550 sovereign rulers, even when the British went away. And with a remarkable ease in a period of 2.5 years, from the kind of problems he faced from the state of Hyderabad, Bhopal, Junagadh, Travancore, Cochin, he overcame each one of those problems and gave us a geographical entity. Though politically we became one, for all commercial and economic purposes we were not one. You had different states, 29 of them, 7 union territories. That was the geographical division. And you had the jurisdictional division. The manufacturing tax known as excise, the service tax to be levied by the centre. You had the sales tax, which later became the VAT, along with other multiple taxes, purchase tax, octroi, entry tax, entertainment tax, luxury tax. 17 of these taxes, many of them levied by the states. And if you manufactured in one state, if you obtained your raw material from another, and your sales took place in different parts of the country, your distributors were located in different parts. For every stage of the transaction, you paid tax. And on the next stage, you again paid tax on tax, thereby adding to the cost. Your goods or services, when they moved in the country, had to stop at every octroi point. The rates in every state were different. And every state wanted to tax you within its own jurisdiction for the simple reason that its own revenues will go up. Otherwise, sharing with the other states is a problem. And there were many cases where, as the economy progressed, your distinction between your VAT and service tax was also being reduced or obliterated. Now, when you paid your bills in a restaurant, how much was the component of food and what was the component of services that the restaurant gave you? If you bought a residential apartment, there were manufactured goods like sanitary fittings, electricity, cement, steel, marble, tiles, and there were the services of an architect, a contractor, a labor contractor. So in the final costing, how did you distinguish between the services and the manufactured product? Now, I think a generation which is born hereafter, when they grow up and try and unravel this puzzle, they'll actually find it very mysterious, the kind of times we have lived in. And then when you started filing your paper returns, you filed multiple returns in multiple places, multiple interface and interaction with assessing authorities. And I have no illusion or doubt that interfaces are a big problem. They lead to corruption, they lead to harassment, they lead to compliance burdens. And therefore, many of us thought, let me now stay outside the taxation system, run the risk of not paying these taxes. And found that as a more comfortable option. And both in direct and indirect taxes, at the end of the day, India was becoming a tax non-compliant society. The whole administration is nightmarish. And the status quoists were quite satisfied with allowing it to grow. And let's be honest, the country needs revenue. Today, your armed forces who are defending your boundaries, they want more weapons. In a modern warfare, I hope it never takes place, but they want more ammunition. Can any one of you afford to tell them we don't have the money in this country to buy it for you? And for all those sectors which say exempt me or my industry should not pay, well, doesn't the police protect you? Doesn't your army protect you? Don't you use the highways and roads? And if you do, you must pay your share of it. And this sense of responsibility of the ownership of the country had to come to us. Tragically, even though for the last 17, 18 years, this was mentioned right from 2003, when the concept of a goods and services tax was given, there was a lot of lip sympathy. Not much movement forward was taking place. And we needed to be proactive in order to make this happen. And not an easy thing. You see, one change in India which has taken place is that in the first 20, 30 years after independence, when you had a single party ruling the whole country, center and states, federalism was not a center stage issue. Sovereignty was. But once sovereignty was secured, every region, every state wanted to grow. So they were conscious of their rights. And therefore, every state, when it's had its own set of demands, it is the aspiration of the people that it voices. That is to the later part of the speech, Mr. Jayakumar saying this, because that's his responsibility to do so. And therefore, to persuade all these 29 states, 7 union territories and 1 central government, that why don't you surrender your rights and these rights that you surrender to tax will now not be surrendered in favor of the central government, or the central government will not surrender it in favor of the state governments. But we create a new mechanism where there is a pooled sovereignty between the center and the states. And both of them sit there. The states have a 2/3 voice, the center has a 1/3 voice. And we decide to have a common taxation administration across the country. Now, some of the states, Tamil Nadu was one of them, Karnataka was another one, Maharashtra was the third, Gujarat was the fourth. And these 4 states were manufacturing states. They said, when you start a destination tax, we are manufacturing states, we have invested in manufacturing infrastructure. In the initial year, what will happen? That we lose revenue. and we don't get a return for what we have invested, there are many states which have not invested in manufacturing. So we told them, in the first 5 years, if you lose anything, we will bear the entire compensation. Now, I think this brought a turning point in the thinking of the states. When the earlier government had tried it, they were not willing to assure the states of a compensation. But then the state said, my revenue will increase every year. How will you factor in the increase? So we said, for the first 5 years, we will guarantee you a 14% increase of revenue every year. And once the states came on board to integrate these 17 taxes into one, you required to pass a constitution amendment, which was done. You required to pass multiple legislations in the center, which was done. You required to pass a legislation in each of the states. Every state did it. And I think what is most commendable, that the power of the economic trade being linked, even though under their own constitution, Jammu and Kashmir, our law did not apply to them. But within a matter of 6 or 7 days, they had to do it. The separatists there started saying, why should you economically integrate? But the consumers started saying, if you don't integrate, I will not get the benefit of input credit and I'll have to pay tax twice over. So it was really an ideological debate between the consumer and the separatist. The traders started saying, nobody will buy from me if they want to buy a car or a refrigerator or a television. They will go to the northern districts of Punjab and buy it from there, because the goods will be cheaper there. And therefore, within a period of 7 days, the economic argument prevailed even in the state of J&K. So every state came on board. And then for 1,211 commodities, the rates had to be decided. Again, not an easy task. And then, not in the GST Council, I must say, nobody was doing unfair politics there. There was a very cooperative mood of cooperative federalism. But outside, those who didn't want it to be implemented started saying, please postpone it. Oh, the software network is not ready. And I think the manner in which it has started has also really been a smooth switchover. As I speak to you today, in a large country like India, 125 crore plus people, the total number of registrants for paying all forms of indirect tax, the registered dealers, VAT, excise, service tax, was 80 lakhs in all. As of today, we've already crossed that figure. About 72 lakh existing have migrated because many were multiple registrations. You were registered for VAT, you were also registered for service tax, you may be also registered for excise. Already about 12 lakh new people have come in. And this number is going to continue to increase, which gives us a slight comfort level that horizontally the base is now expanding. And once it starts expanding, which means the greater the compliances take place, which is also an evidence that the registration is a simple process. Now, how do I foresee the impact of this? You'll have only one tax. You'll have a free flow of goods and services. 25 states have already knocked off their octroi posts. Hopefully each and every octroi post will be abolished. Trucks and vehicles, when they carry goods, are moving much faster. They are saving time, they are saving fuel, they are saving human man-hours. The products which are loaded in them is an investment. It reaches the destination fast. And once that happens, you have a free flow and a more efficient economy. You have the next advantage that at every stage of the manufacturing process till the final destination, the tax that you pay, you don't pay a tax on that tax. You get the benefit of your input credit. And you can understand if it is honestly given, and I hope businesses honestly give it. We did not reduce the tax on vehicles. It remained the same. We followed 2-3 basic principles. One is the principle of equivalence, that you must pay as much as you were paying, close to what you were paying under the old system. And you suddenly found that the benefit of the credit being accommodated was such that the prices started radically falling. And therefore, initially we have kept multiple slabs because we didn't want the GST to have an inflationary impact. A product which is, let us say, paying 10% or 11%, if you can bring it to the 12% category, if you suddenly took it to 18%, there'll be a huge inflationary impact of that product. We wanted to keep various food items, etc., either nil or at the lowest slab. And therefore, the advantage of inflation being contained, the switchover being smoothened, and at the end of the day, getting the benefit of inputs, what you've already paid, you don't pay tax twice over, no taxation on taxation. And then you only file a simple return. Now initially, I've seen various kinds of misinformations that there are 36 returns to be filed. Well, all you do is you file before the 10th of every month one return of the previous month. The rest are computer generated themselves. And at the end of the year, hopefully if you've been honestly filing your returns, you'll get an online assessment order. You won't even know who your assessing officer was unless the computer in relation to your return throws up a few red alerts that you've not been fair in filing the return and some queries are required. So the multiple interface is over. There is at best a single interface. And that single interface from a human being can be reduced to an interface with the software if you file an honest, correct return. And what does this lead to? The net weighted average of taxes is lesser than what it was originally. The base expands. The country has more resources, and there are several trades where, because of the benefit of tax paid at earlier stages, the inputs will adjust the taxation at a subsequent stage. So you will have to file a return, but you may not have to pay additional tax. But some of them protested. And when I asked them, but you are not going to have to pay additional tax, your earlier inputs would accommodate it. These were industries which are not worried about the indirect tax. To claim that input credit, the volume of their trade will get known and therefore they'll probably have to pay income tax. So the net impact of the manner in which the whole tax is designed, the architecture is designed, is not only on direct tax, on indirect tax, but also on direct taxes.